Now for something entirely different, good people. This is not town meeting. This is the kickoff meeting for a new vision for our town meeting. This is the town meeting re-envisioned outcome. And I want to just get things started with a couple of classic comments about logistics. The food is just outside for a donation to the library. The coffee and the cider is inside right here for you, so help yourself anytime during the meeting. I also had wished to acknowledge or note the passing of Mary Jane Dickerson, who passed away 2 days ago. She was an enormous figure in this town's government in a great number of ways, and a particularly impressive force for citizen action, and she will be deeply missed across the whole community. I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes talking about how we got to where we are today. It began with the decision by you as citizens of Jericho that the town meeting should be restructured, and that was done by means of 2 public questions that showed up on the town meeting warning last year and were actually decided on during the town meeting with amendments. And the outcome was that the actual decisions about the town budget would be made by Australian Budget on town meeting day. And so that if we wanted to have some sort of town meeting-like structure, it would precede town meeting. And what happened was that the select board actually charged a task force, a town meeting reimagined task force, with the job of coming up with an idea for what to do. And I'm coming to you as co-chair of that task force rather than moderator. And Gay Symington was my other co-chair, and she's unable to be here today. That task force came up with a report that went to the select board I've even forgotten, it was spring. And the select board accepted it, and it actually has a simple set of components, but it's an expanded version of citizen involvement. And I should say that there were key things that went into the thinking about the report that were coming out of what the citizens wanted to see happen in the town. One was to get more meaningful public input into the budget and into the public question process. And the second was to somehow get more community involvement, and that should include improving access to the meetings. And thus we discovered that what we envision is hybrid in its very nature, hence the technology that we have here today. I wanted to say just say briefly what the components are, and I will hand it over to Sam. There are 3 components to the process rather than 1, now that we are moving on into this new world. The first is the one that you have been great to show up for here today, and this is the kind of turnout that we needed for the first year for our experiment to get this to work. So this is what we've been calling the kickoff meeting. The second meeting has to precede town meeting day in March, and it turns out that with some work we've discovered that it has to be in late January. So there will be a second meeting in January, and that will be a meeting in which there will be a draft budget. But that draft budget will be developed with input from you folks today, and also anytime through setup that we'll have for more input coming in to the town. And that will seem like a town meeting. We've got a way we can actually have a moderator, we elected one, show up and actually run the meeting and actually entertain amendments to the draft budget. Those amendments will be advisory rather than binding, but as you'll hear from the select board this morning, the select board is more than eager to have the input of the citizens informing the budget through this meeting and through the review of the draft budget. The final step, the third step, is the vote, is the Australian ballot vote, when the final budget will be on the ballot for a vote on town meeting day 2025. Okay, I think I've done my part. Sam, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Hello, everybody. It's kind of weird speaking into a mic without it coming out in the room, but welcome, everybody. My name is Sam Gralty. I'm on the task force that David mentioned. And I just wanted to briefly acknowledge some folks and kind of talk a little bit more about why we're here and how we got here. So firstly, one thing I want to say is if we all stay engaged and continue to participate in this process, today is the worst version of this process we're going to have, which is a good way to think about it, because we're going to be improving it, and this is all new, and we're trying our best. And as a task force, we've been realizing that we're not quite building the plane as we're flying it, but honestly, I think that we have a pretty good process designed already today, so worst being hopefully just all the more better next year, but that's one thing to think about. I appreciate you all coming and showing patience and engagement. Hopefully next year it's going to be even better. We do have a survey I want to make sure people know is you're able to give some feedback about this process today, what you liked, what you didn't like. So just want to acknowledge that this is something new. We're all in this together. We all have the goals that David was talking about earlier about having more deeper engagement in the budget process. So thank you all. I do want to acknowledge some other folks as well. Certainly want to acknowledge David for continuing to shepherd us through our budget process, this brave new process that we have, and putting on a different hat beyond moderator. Certainly Gay, as well as the other co-chair, for continuing to bring amazing ideas and communication, especially in her work with the select board. I want to acknowledge the select board as well for their work with us and engaging in this process and figuring out how best it's going to work. Obviously, I want to thank Jen for her vision and her organization for helping pull this all together. I don't think we could have done it without you, so thank you so much. Additionally, all of the rest of the members of the task force for your work in showing up and bringing ideas, bringing enthusiasm. And again, lastly, thanks to all of you for showing up. It means a lot that we have this many people here. I'm really excited to meet you and talk to you and explore this new process with you. So I think with that, I'll pass it back over to Jen.
Welcome. Agenda review time and a little bit of description about how this will work today. So the flow of activities is here on the screen. It might be a little small, but in audio version, opening comments is where we are now. There's brief content after this, so some brief presentations around how to give input on the town budget, how to develop public questions, and then how the town budget relates to the town plan. So a little bit of content information there, some maybe if we have time for clarifying question and answer. But the bulk of our time today will be really spent in small group discussions, and that's designed so that you can talk with your neighbors, get some of that input that you want the select board to know about the budget, talk about the town plan. We do have some facilitators who will take some notes during that time so that that input can get collated, gathered, and reported back. So how to participate? Most of us are actually in the room, and so it will be a little easier. We have lots of visual shortcuts for each other, so you can raise your hand or you can catch our eye in one way or another. The important thing for those of us in the room is that when you speak, you use a microphone. You can't see mine because it's this little guy, but we'll be passing this one around, and Sam, it is really awkward, and I'm glad you went first. You're talking into the microphone, not for the benefit of the room, but for the benefit of the people who are online. That also means that folks who are speaking will need to project. Can you hear me in the back okay? It's all right? Good. Yeah, it's kind of iffy. I'll do my best, and I encourage, if any of us up here, if you can't hear us, just do something like this so that we see. Okay, if you're online, This is good to review, although there's only a couple of you there. Here's how you can participate. Your Zoom controls, if you just jiggle your mouse across the screen, you'll get all of those tabs along the bottom. In the reactions toolbar, you'll be able to raise your hand. You also have the chat function. Maria is standing by in case you have any technical troubles. You can chat with her and see if she can help you get online. And let's see. Closed captioning is also an option if that's helpful for you online. And here in the Zoom, in the real room, we don't have that, but those who are hybrid do. So you can just go to that little icon on your toolbar that has the CC in a little box, and you'll get the captions. I think we may be live streaming as well. No, we're not today. Okay. Have I forgotten anything, task force team, about where we're going today and how this all works? It does take a village, that's for sure. Table sessions, right, so the rest of the agenda review, Dave is reminding me I never got past small groups. So the table groups will happen mostly in this room. If you're online, you'll stay online and we'll stay in a small group to talk. Again, notes will be brought back and we'll all come together as a large group at 11:30 for closing comments and announcements. At 11:45, there will be some time for more baked goods, tabling, and general mingling. I also have some announcements of other activities happening in the building later on today. Have I left anything out? I think that's good. So here's our speakers table. Let's go on to the next. We're at the presentation component of this meeting. So I'd love to invite Select Board Chair Catherine McMains to the speakers table up here. The topic is how to give input on the town budget. And I'm happy to share screen when you're ready.
Yeah, I think the important thing is to show where the select board, oh, okay, where it is.
So if you pin that near your top of your sweater.
Oh, there it is.
These are the cutest little microphones. They have this teeny tiny little clip.
Like that? Does it work?
Sounds good.
Great. Yeah, the important thing that Jen will share is our Town of Jericho website and where the select board agendas and minutes are posted, because that's the best way to follow what we're going to do. And I like to write out everything I talk about. I want to thank everyone for coming today on this absolutely gorgeous classic fall day. And it's so exciting to, for people to come and kick off a new way for members of the community to engage in the budget process on a way to a town meeting reimagined. I and the other select board members especially want to thank the Town Meeting Reimagined Committee for all their hard work to take a concept voted on at the 2024 town meeting, putting in the hard work and the details on a way to a new and reimagined but still community-centric town meeting in January. I've been asked to present information about the budget process, which really tracks with the dates of the select board meetings from November 7th through January 30th. We meet on the first and third Thursdays and can be reached by email or contact the town administrator, public carrier, with any of your, ideas, information, or stuff that you think about during the year for the budget. The intent is to start this budget discussion on November 7th with an overview of the process and begin to fill in the blanks on different segments of the budget that will be discussed on each of the select board meeting dates. We are currently operating under the fiscal year 2025 budget that was voted on in March. And right now, the 2024 audit is being finished up. And we are also starting now the development of the fiscal year 2026 budget. So there's a lot of activity always going on in the finance area. And during the month of October, notices will go out to the outside agencies for their budget requests for fiscal year 2026. Town departments and the committees during this time will also be working on their needs and putting together their budget for the 2026 fiscal year. The finance staff, once finished with assisting the auditors, will begin looking at the funding sources, consider increases that we're going to be facing in healthcare, what kind of numbers we're going to look at for salary increases, as well as other basic building blocks of the budget. And other agencies like the Deborah Rawson Memorial Library in Mills Riverside will be also crafting their budgets for public hearings to adopt their budgets in January, which then is passed along to us to put into our budget. The fire department budget, after development by the fire department people, is then discussed with the select board member and the town administrators of both towns, and then a joint meeting of both boards is presented to the public in January for adoption and putting into our budget. The select board also starts with will also start this year probably with a work session with the treasurer and the town administrator to begin plugging in information received and submitted and estimate others to see what kind of final budget may look like. The budget information requests that come from this kickoff meeting will also be considered as part of the development process, because we really do want to see public input along the way. You know, it's kind of hard when you have a regular select board meeting and you're talking about a significant part of the budget and very few people are there. So it's nice to kick it off and have more people come. So each select board meeting will feature a different segment of the budget and further refine the numbers. Another work session or two may also be scheduled to see what the budget as a whole looks like, what may need to be reduced or completely cut out. It's to keep the tax increase that we know is going to happen to a manageable number. And although the town budget is a small part of your tax bill in comparison to that of the school, the town is also cognizant of the implications of the projected school budgets and tax increases and what impact that does have on the taxpayers. So we try to keep ours to, you know, what we can and still maintain the job that the select board needs to do for keeping the town running. Another important segment of the budget is the capital budget. This is spending on projects and equipment that are paid over a number of years and then also are expected to last quite a few number of years. Included in this budget are your highway trucks, the big equipment, the road and bridge work, sidewalks, the debt on the town hall, the debt on the new town maintenance facility, as well as committee projects exceeding $10,000 and will last more than a year. The capital budget is discussed at a public hearing before being voted to be adopted into the general budget. An important date for all this process occurs in January. Without a special meeting at the end of December, the select board will need to warn a public hearing for the capital budget at its December 19th meeting for January 16th. The meeting needs to be warned 15 days before the hearing, which cannot be met if we waited till the meeting of January 2nd to do so. Putting all the budget pieces together into a complete draft needs to be done by the 17th of January to allow people to view digitally the budget before the reimagined town meeting, which is scheduled now for the 24th of January, I believe. And snow date is the 27th. At its meeting of January 16th, the select board, according to the calendar put out by VLCT of the things, we will have to warn our first public information meeting of the completed budget and town meeting warning at a special meeting on January 30th. At this special information meeting on the budget and warning on January 30th, the select board also has to finalize the town meeting warning. There is a PDF of the town report with stand-ins for the budget and warning that needs to be sent to the printers on the 23rd, and the proof then comes back to the town by January 31st. With the reimagined town meeting in the books and any changes from that meeting incorporated, the final report then is sent to the printers for February 1st, so that it gets mailed out mid-February for you to have in time for the real town meeting ballot vote. The last week of February also sees the required information meeting for the budget and warrant materials within the 10-day window before Australian Ballot voted, and that is required. And I guess if there's any questions, I could answer them now.
It's a dance of dates for sure.
Yes.
If you do have questions, and I imagine there may be some as you go along, jot them down on that piece of paper, because you won't, during small groups, you won't be the only person wondering, and we can get those answers up on the website so that others can know too.
Yes.
One of the benefits here is that you're entering the season now, so many budget conversations.
Absolutely. We'd like to hear.
David, I'd like to welcome you back up to talk about public questions. And while you're working on the microphone, I was I did not announce that the Leos were here to provide childcare. And I don't see any kids in the room, which means either kids didn't come or they're in the quiet workroom actually being really quiet. But in any case, I so appreciate that the Leos were able to be available for that. And we also were prepared to welcome that youthful energy into the room because it does take a village and we want people here. So Dave, when you're ready, public questions.
Okay, it falls to me to remind you that there were two different articles in the town warning last year, one on the budget and the other on public questions. And so I want to bring everybody up to speed on public questions in the spirit of the first of the three events of the town meeting cycle being an information meeting where we build the citizens' understanding of how the process works, and we move to getting citizen input on both the budget and also provide them with the ability to coin and develop public questions. So my job is a short, like 2-minute précis of the public question situation. So you may not be familiar with the phrase public questions. It was exactly the right phrase to include in the warning because public questions actually end up being categorizable into a couple of different categories. You're most familiar with one type, which is the petition, which originates with citizens. And the other type of basic public question actually originates with the select board. They can coin and put public questions directly onto the ballot without going through the petition process. Let me say a little bit about the two kinds of petitions, and it has to do with the number of signatures that you have on the petition. One of them requires 5% of the voters, which in our case is 225, to sign a petition. That version of the petition requires select board approval, and they can either choose to place it on the Australian ballot or not. And those are, as I understand it, not amendable, and we'll talk more about that. And then they go to the ballot if the select board says they're okay. There's a second level of petition. It's what comes to the ballot when 10% of the people are involved. That's 450 people. These then end up going to the ballot without the select board having a say about whether it reaches the ballot or not. Now, I think I've just cornered myself into a trap about what's amendable and not amendable, so I may need some help here. But the point is that we can actually begin to develop petitions beginning at this meeting, encourage you to start developing them. At the January meeting, a subset of the petitions are in fact amendable. And we can say more about that. The best way to initiate a petition is actually to start with Town Clerk Jessica Alexander and to visit her in Town Hall. Jessica invites anybody interested in developing a petition to do so. And that starts a process where you learn about whether your idea for petition will work. If Jessica doesn't have answers, she'll check in with the state agencies that provide information about them, and she'll guide you through the actual what's appropriate for the form to gather the signatures and related matters. Now, Peter, I may need your help here, but I realize I'm still confused about which of these is amendable and which is not. And I'm fairly sure that the select board petition is amendable when it arrives in draft form to the January meeting. Does that agree with your understanding?
I believe that is accurate.
You'll need a microphone, Peter. Let me just. It's sticky. Yes.
I'm going to watch Catherine McMain's while I talk, because she knows everything. I believe that before that January meeting, a select board generated question can be amended. Catherine?
Yeah, those need a microphone.
Sorry, Catherine.
It's just like town meeting.
Yeah, just like town meeting. The ones that the select board generates usually are the things like you've seen before, where you're abating the taxes of various organizations that the property, like the fire department property and things like that, or other things that and those can be amended. I do have a thing on the 5% and 10%. 5% petitions are put directly to the ballot without changing, because those are petitions that relate to town business. If it's kind of like the town business but not quite, that's why the select board said let's do 10%, because these are people, when people were asking for, let's have 350.org, and we're going to say we're going to do the Paris Accord ourselves. Because it sort of relates to the town but isn't quite town business, the select board years ago decided that if 10% of the people actually put a petition up for that, we'll accept it and put it on the ballot as well. And
Okay.
that's where we are.
And the deadline for all of those relates to your going to the printer date.
Yes.
And so you said,
Petitions have to be in by January 16th.
Catherine, you're not on the microphone anymore.
I
But
can just repeat it. What
I said the 5% petitions.
5% petitions by January 16th.
Related to town business must be on the ballot, must be into Jessica's office and by January 16th.
All right?
But the other ones that the select board might control, the 10%ers, and as the financial ones, can be discussed up until the time it goes to the printers.
Very good.
And in the interest of time, I'm just wondering how many people have specific questions about these differences right now? Okay, so yes, specific question about the nuances of these petitions and public questions. We'll need the microphone.
I had a little trouble hearing exactly what was said, but I'll try to paraphrase.
Well, hold till you get to the microphone. And so,
Typically, they don't need a mic.
You do for online?
it's a big experiment using the hybrid environment.
I'll try to make this a specific question.
Yes, please.
The town plan indicates an interest in us moving to a 5-member select board. Specifically, I'm an advocate for that because 2 select board members cannot talk to one another without it being an illegal public meeting. So I can't talk to 2 select board members at one time. We have a $4.5 million project with 3 overworked volunteers who are also called select board members. Reading their resumes, I don't see any of them that have capital structure and major league, multi-million-dollar financial background. If we don't help the select board and help the town by having adequate staffing in the governance of the town. Now,
So I'm going to time you out for just a moment.
Yeah.
And that's mostly out of an interest
Could
of
I
time.
capture this? I think I can nail this. Jim, I think the question is, how do we increase the size of the select board?
is it a 5%, 10%, or
La- I-
15%?
no. So that is the question, right?
The only
would-
way to increase or decrease the number of members in the select board, this is written into the town charter, so this is the only way it's possible, is by a petition of 15% of the registered voters in town being presented to Jessica by that January 16th deadline. So that's the only way. The select board, no matter how much the select board does or doesn't want that to happen, I'm on the select board, we have no ability to make that happen. So it's 15% of the registered voters in town presenting a petition to Jessica by January 16th.
Oh,
Great.
all right,
Thank you.
I think we're all set on
Public questions?
petitions.
Petitions. There's one more slide, and that's, I think, if you're running for office.
Oh, right.
Thank you so much.
Just
Probably.
briefly,
Here, I'll give it to you.
You may be aware of the process for running for town office. We just want to make sure that you're aware of that. And we actually have the materials for anybody who wants to run for public office set up there. There are actually a couple of petitions there to sign if you so choose to support the candidates already. And here are the possibilities for town offices that you could be part of. I think SJ is going to sign up for the. No, that's out of order. Anyway, this is all we want to get in on running for office.
Okay.
Materials are here, and here are the offices.
And the materials are right up front at the table just as you head out the door. A question, sorry Dave, there's an opportunity now for folks to speak from the floor if there are questions in development, or if you want to raise questions that you're considering, or if you're collecting signatures for other purposes like running for office. So you can take up to 2 minutes to share that information with people assembled here if you wish. I'm just looking for a show of hands who might be interested in one of those in speaking there, so I can estimate time. Does anybody want to speak to there's 2 hands and none online that I see. So let's get the microphone to you, and you have up to 2 minutes. Just say who you are, and then describe what it is you're looking for, whether it's petitioning or a public question you'd like to have considered or to talk about further.
Hi, thank you. My name's Robert DeVost. I live on Milo White Road. This is all brand new to me, I'm sure it is to everyone here. So what I'm hearing so far is a lot of the dates for information for the budget come out too close or after the proposed new town meeting, if you will. I mean, is there a conflict there of enough information getting out so when we have that meeting, we have everything to work with, I guess? That's my question. The other question I had too is concerning petitions. So my understanding is the quickest, shortest way is, can we here present something to the select board to put on as a referendum question, if you will? Or is that, I don't know if that's in the realm of discussion later.
I think it's a fantastic question, and there's probably a short answer, but then a longer answer too. So if Dave, if you're still mic'd in, do you have a clarification around if someone wanted to ask the select board to to develop a question, is that as simple as asking the select board to do that, or is it still petitions? You're asking to see if you need petitions for that.
Right, I'm not sure part of the new process, if that's.
Oh, I see.
Let's go back to am I all set to talk?
You are.
Let's go back to your first question. Is it too late to actually have impact on that second meeting? No. The whole point is the first meeting is the ID meeting. That's this meeting. The second meeting, there's a draft budget. Citizens come to that meeting and impact the select board's final decisions about the budget through a process much like the traditional town meeting. There's just no vote. The vote is on the edited budget that comes out of the town select board's response to those. There'll be amendments, advisory amendments made in that second meeting, so that the final budget is actually being impacted by the citizens in both of the 2 meetings we envision.
Oh, no, I appreciate that, David, but I mean, from what I was hearing of the dates.
You'll need the microphone.
From what I was hearing for the dates, it sounds like there was almost a conflict. I mean, certain things have to be.
Yeah, we spent hours on this. What we did was to get the second meeting as late as possible, and still be a meeting in which it could have impact on the final budget. So that it's like January, it's the last week in January will be the meeting, and all the deadlines that you've been hearing are just after the second meeting.
Just one more. I think Catherine mentioned, though, the date for printing is January 15th? No. Am I wrong? Okay. If I'm wrong, I'm glad to be wrong.
Yeah, the short answer is yes, it's a very tight schedule, but that there is not a conflict, that it all comes back to the printing, and the dates that Catherine gave all line up for each of this meeting and meeting number 2 to impact the final budget that goes before the voters in time.
Thank you.
That was a guiding principle, by the way.
So there's no other questions. Was there anybody else who wanted to, so it's sort of like advertising or highlighting, here's a public question that I'd like to raise or you can look for. Anybody want to put that out into the, yes, you need the microphone before you speak and it's coming right up. Thank you.
So for anybody that's not here today, if there's an issue that they want brought forward, they attend the select board meeting or contact Jessica to get that on the select board meeting.
That's
to get
exactly
put on
right.
the budget. Okay.
Jessica Alexander seems to be the first stop. She's well-informed and she can help you get the answers if she doesn't have them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other announcements of public questions that are in development or that you're considering and want to talk further about with your neighbors? Okay, we're moving on to the next presentation, which is around the town plan and how it relates to budget and public questions. Planning Commission Chair, is it Susan Brzee? Am I saying your last name the right way? Brzee. Here's your microphone.
Thank you.
It's a little tangled up. There's the end. And I will share the screen when you're ready. It's always tricky with these little guys, isn't it?
Yeah.
Does that sound okay?
You can hear me? Okay. Let's see. Hi. I feel like I'm on Shark Tank and I'm like making a pitch for the town plan. So my name is Susan Brzee and I am a volunteer. Like lots of you, everybody here volunteers for the library or coaching soccer or for the land trust. And I am a volunteer for the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission has 7 members and we have a pretty broad mission. We work primarily on researching and studying and learning about issues related to growth and development in the town. Land use, economic development, conservation is all sort of the purview of the Planning Commission. And so I'm making a pitch today. I kind of feel like it's like Shark Tank. I'm making a pitch to say that the town plan can be really helpful and provide a lot of guidance as we, as a community, think about how do we want to pool our resources, our money in the form of a budget, but also our time and our attention to get things done and to achieve things in the town that we really care about. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we might think about connecting those two things together. So can I just like wink or whatever? Okay. So the town plan is one of the things that the Planning Commission works to produce. And we recently produced a new town plan. It was adopted by the Select Board at the end of 2023. And the town plan outlines our goals and our vision for the future. And it also identifies actions that we can take as a community to make those things come to life. The town has a lot of tools at its disposal to implement the town plan. But one of the most powerful tools that we have are the budgets. And there's 2 kinds of budgets. Catherine briefly talked about this, that we have a capital budget, and the capital budget is big picture, long-term, things like buildings and vehicles and long-term plans. And the operating budget, which is what we vote on every year at town meeting and now in this new format, and that's kind of like keeping the town running and things that we need to do every year, fixing things, building things. It's oftentimes think about the operating budget as the capital budget, 5 years or more, broken down into chunks. So if you think about your family budget, you have to pay your electric bill, you have to take care of your everyday needs and the grocery store. But you also basically have a family plan. Your family plan might look like, do I want to change my job? Do I want to move? Do I want to add a porch onto my house? And your family plan drives your budget, because you can't really have a budget unless you have a plan. A lot of times, your family budget involves borrowing. So if you want to move to a new house, you're going to take out a mortgage. If you're gonna save for college for yourself or for kids, you often will take out a student loan. Similarly, the town's capital plan also often involves borrowing. And borrowing is a really powerful tool that the town can use to make its hopes and dreams, and I think about the town plan in terms of needs and dreams, come true. So, okay, I'm gonna do a little exercise. Think about the word budget. What words come to your mind? Really exciting, right? So exciting. Taxes, numbers, spreadsheets, arm wrestling, trade-offs, making choices, right? I'm on the planning commission, so I'm gonna put on my little planning commission hat and I'm gonna say, budgets, oh my gosh, they're so exciting. They're so powerful because they are the way that we make our dreams come true. So I hope when we're all in our breakout sessions today, try and think about it that way. Try and think about, how does the budget help us say yes? How does the budget help us move forward? How does the budget help us make progress? But we don't have to start from scratch, because the Planning Commission has already worked with lots of people here, the whole town, for literally like 2 years to develop the town plan. Okay, so let me talk just very briefly about the town plan. We called it Jericho's Journey Forward. We liked a little alliteration, but also really thinking about evolving, that things change over time. We're going places. What the town's going to look like in 20 years is a lot different than what it looks like today. And it's hard to kind of come up out of the ground and take a look around and see the big picture. So I want to just highlight, since you're all not necessarily experts in the town plan, but I'm suggesting that today we think about the town plan when we talk together about the budget. I want to just highlight a couple of things for you about the town plan. So, as I mentioned, we worked for about 2 years. We had meetings, dozens of meetings. We had a big meeting here in the library, lots of online surveys, lots of workshops, lots of people participated, and we developed the town plan. And the town plan asked a lot of questions about, what do you think are the challenges of the town? What problems do we need to solve? And then also, what things would you like to change about the town? What would you like more of? What would you like to see new in the town? And we got lots of feedback on those things, and we organized all of those hopes and dreams and needs into 5 main categories. And that's what you see here on the screen. And the categories are to have a resilient community, to expand choices for housing, to invigorate our villages so that we have hubs of the community where we have housing and small businesses, and our schools are located there. And a connected community, which really thinks about the infrastructure, the physical things that connect us, like roads and sidewalks and trails, but also the social network, the things that bind us together, is addressed under connected community, because the social aspect of it was also very important to residents, just like when town meeting being reimagined needed to consider how we would all work together. And then the last item is, the last category was to build an effective community. So now it's like, well, what does it have to do with the budget? Remember, the budget, dry, taxes, spreadsheets, boring. And this is all very exciting, very inspiring. So I'm going to give you a little example of how you might think about it when you're working in your groups. So down the left-hand side, those are those same 5 priorities that I just listed with a little bit more information. And you'll have a handout at your table that will repeat this information. Just basically goes through what resilience means to protect our natural resources. And housing talks about more choices, seniors, young families, the villages and how they can grow. connectivity, and effective government. So those are the 5 kind of categories. And you think about that in terms of, well, what should we focus our resources on in a 1-year chunk in the upcoming 25-26 budget, but also it would be helpful to know, what do you think about for the long term, because we have to make down payments on that long term in every budget to ever achieve anything more big and inspiring. So let me just walk you through a couple of examples. For protecting natural resources, our budget, our dollars allocates money to a conservation reserve fund, or we support the Jericho Underhill Land Trust. And that money has been used most recently to conserve land for local farmland to bring it back to farming, or farms to keep them farming. So that's one way that the community's value about resilience and natural resources translates into a line item on the budget. So you can carry that all the way through to, this is a different example where a connected community. So in 1 year, I need to Vanna White this. So in 1 year, I'm going to maintain roads, and I'm also going to finish a sidewalk segment. So maintaining roads, every year you got to do it. It's like paying your electric bill. Finishing a sidewalk segment is this year's contribution to completing a long-term plan. So now we can go ahead. So taking that example further in the capital plan, because we are finishing that segment, the town is finishing that segment to connect Jericho Center to the high school so that you can walk, you can bicycle, you can go in a wheelchair. We also have, in the town plan, we have an intention to create a connection like that from Jericho Corners, where Jericho Elementary School is, all the way to Riverside, where Browns River Middle School is. That's a big project. It's going to take a long time. But you have to start setting aside money if you ever want to get that done. And you also have to start working on the project by engineering what that solution is going to be. So this is the kind of thing that the select board works with all the committees, and especially the Planning Commission, to try to map out. And what we're hoping that everyone is going to be talking about today is how to prioritize these things. What are the things that are on your mind that potentially fit within the framework of the town plan, so that you don't need to start from scratch, because there's already been, the table has already been set, so to speak. Okay, I think I'm almost done. Yes. Just remember that when you think about funding, it doesn't all come from us. There's, Jericho can access from many sources: grants, borrowing, bonds, nonprofits. We can partner with private entities. So when you think about it today, try not to say, no, we can't afford it. Try to say, yes, how could we make this happen? Because now's the time to be, how could we make this happen? January will be the time to pick and choose. And then lastly, just to emphasize that the town plan is a kind of a roadmap, and it's kind of a framework. You can go ahead. And to think about not just today, but also tomorrow, and try to be as specific as you can, and try to think about what your priorities are for your family and for your neighborhood, but also try to anticipate, if you had a crystal ball, try to see and imagine what things might be like 5 years from now or 10 years from now, to help you decide how you want to prioritize your budget work in the upcoming year. And that's it.
So small group discussions is where we're at. We'll be talking about, and it can be, this was a lot of information, and it's very exciting, and you can keep it simple too. This conversation is about what are you paying attention to with the town budget? What are you paying attention to with the town plan? And if you have been paying attention to it, there'll be some information on the tables that you can reference. Do you have a question, Peter?
Yeah, I'm going to speak really loudly. Can you hear me on
They might,
Zoom okay?
they might not hear you on the Zoom till you.
I've been a math teacher for 34 years, and I'm very aware of when you're talking at a group of people for a long, long time, how minds can drift. I'd like to recommend that in the transition from where we are now to the small groups, like a 3-minute break to get a snack, go to the bathroom, get some coffee, and kind of reset your brains for the work that's going to happen, because I am aware of just...
Let me do a time check, and I'm
Okay.
going to let you pace your own adventure there, because we have about half an hour before I'm still going to keep us on track for the overall morning meeting. So here's your invitation. If you're online, you can meet online, and there's just a small group of people there. So I will tend to, Maria's online, she can give you some guidance. If you're in the room, here's my suggestion, is that you do take a break if you need it. If you're ready to actually start small groups, those small groups can begin. And there's about 40 people or maybe a little more in the room. You've got some small group facilitators. Could you raise your hands if you're volunteering? Thank you, task force members and others who agreed to facilitate small groups. They're here to take that input that you have, the ideas about what you're paying attention to, the questions you're raising, and they'll be jotting them down so that we can have a big summary of that to be able to look forward to as a community, but also your select board members will be looking at it as they enter development season for budget. In terms of groups, let's use these easel sheets as gathering spots. One up front, there'll be one in that corner over by SJ and one by Heidi. But I also have a couple extra discussion props printed out and extra papers. So if you want to get a smaller group and gather at a table in the back, you're welcome to do that. Just come get the materials up front here. Okay? So small group facilitators, do you have any questions for me logistically before we begin?
There's two kinds of groups.
There's groups online and there's groups in the room. Can we get the microphone over to the back? There's somebody who has a question. So if you're in the room, it's super easy for you. Grab some coffee if you like, use the restroom if you need to. They're right down the hall over here, and then come back and join a small group. Go ahead, question in the back.
My name is Jim Carroll. My first town meeting in Jericho was in 1967. I was a political science student at St. Michael's. And there's, even with all of the technology that's been available, all of the displays and all this work, I would say that we've actually had less of a democratic process because of lack of proper participation, lack of quality communications, and missing the strategic issues. When we look at our town budget, we're polishing pebbles because the principal expense that we're encountering is being downloaded on us based upon algorithms that we don't control. So for example, Jericho, as a high-income town, is ascending town, if you will, in that when they run the algorithm, they give us less money, and I can't even get anybody to explain how the algorithm works, but I know it was screwed with over the past few years.
Well, let me do a little heavy lift there.
I'd just like to say, as you go into the breakout groups, I'm trying to think of what her name is, state representative, said our cost to build something in the last 5 years has gone up 78%. That means that a $200,000 house is now over $300,000, but that doesn't change the value of what it is that you're receiving.
So here's I am gonna, in the interest of time, because I want to make sure you all get a chance to actually have those conversations, please do take it to a table and get some of those questions up onto your flip chart. I think part of what you're saying is be aware of rising costs, be aware of some of these practicalities, and articulate the questions you have so that they can be exchanged in information and really answered. So please, do break into small groups. I'll come around with a little note at the 5 and 10 minute mark so that you can watch time, and we'll come back into the large group at 11:30. I am sorry to trim that comment short, and again, it's in the interest of giving everyone a chance to talk to each other around these very same questions. Okay, we're moving into small groups now. Online crew, I'll be with you in just a moment. I know the select board members will be paying attention to that document. I know planning commission members and a lot of other committees and volunteers who are moving the business of Jericho forward will be tending to those comments. and reading them and absorbing them. But of course, that's not the end of the road. So this is just the kickoff in the beginning. I do want to emphasize that budget development season begins in November. Select board meetings are the go-to stop. Again, either through written comment to your town administrator or by attending the meeting via Zoom or at the town offices. We do really want to know how this meeting went. Those of us who were volunteering on the task force and trying to figure out what would this new setup be like, what structures work, what do you want to see more of or less of? For example, more speaker in the room or more visual in the room, less time with presentation or small group, whatever it is. So you'll find some meeting evaluation papers, if you like paper, over on the welcome table. But I'm also going to share my screen. There's a QR code for those of you who like using Mentimeter surveys. You can do either. Those QR codes are located on this pink piece of paper here at the front table, at the welcome, or I'll put it up here on the screen. I will put it up on the screen here in just a moment. There we go. The next town meeting will be held on Thursday evening, January 23rd, and that will probably feel very familiar to you. There will be a draft budget to be looking at, town moderated, very similar, only there will be a hybrid element as well. So there will be people in the room and on Zoom. We'll be giving that experiment another try. It's time for thank yous. It truly takes a village to create town meetings. That's true every year. But this year, people are trying out new ways of gathering and providing input, which sometimes feels like a risk and takes extra energy. Not just for the people who are trying to put it together, but for all of you who are participating. So I want to thank you, all of you, for participating today and giving your time and energy to this grand experiment. A special thanks to the members of the task force and to the volunteers who facilitated small groups today, to the town committees who are tabling, commissions and boards who contribute their time throughout the year, and also to our staff of the Town of Jericho, to MMCTV, thank you, and to the MMU High School, which has been so welcoming to have us in this space. Our gratitude also extends beyond this town as well to other people in Vermont who are also experimenting with their town meetings. So we were reaching out to some of those people as we were figuring out what this format would look like. All of us right now are puzzling through how to best engage and include our communities in this important work, and sometimes it does feel messy, but all along the way, I have to say, I'm so impressed with the people who show up and the energy they give and the connections that are made, and I thank you very much on behalf of the task force to all of you. So 2 announcements, and then we'll adjourn, unless I have forgotten. The 2 announcements are around tabling and other events happening at the school. Task force members, have I forgotten anything critical?
Continuing input online.
Continuing input online. Well, there's 2 ways. Do you mean on the budget, Dave? You're talking specifically around budget input? Well, I'm going to take a guess. There's a couple ways to give input. If it's around town meeting reimagined, the task force is still listening. Use the town evaluation survey to give some input to us, and you can put your contact information if you like, and we can follow up. If you have input about the town budget, there are 3 different ways to give that information: through the select board meetings in November, through written comment to the town administrator, and showing up at the next meeting on January 23rd. That's the extent that I know of right now. Question?
Where do we find all the list of the dates that Catherine was mentioning?
Yep, so the meeting schedules for the select board are all on the Join in Jericho town meeting page.
Okay, including when something needs to go to the printer and why it's there.
Oh, the dance of dates, yeah.
It's all, okay.
Yes. It can put a whole schedule out in November.
So the answer is, because the microphone was missing a bit for folks online and for the recording, those dates can be there. And you're talking specifically about that interplay of when things get published, when they're, so that you can see them and respond to them. There are a lot of dates. So you might not find it on a calendar, but you can find it in the Join in Jericho page. And if you don't find it there, then ask, because the chances are we'll be able to get it. Okay. Even if some of the details are as clear as mud, we know where our landing spots are to get some of the answers in meetings like this and in the town offices. So thank you. Okay, 2 announcements. Tabling, thank you to our committees who are tabling today. There's information, I think it's all located here near the front of the building. And then there's, no? All along this side. And then there's also bake sale still as you head out the door. One more announcement, the Mount Mansfield School Board has begun the search process for a new superintendent who will join the district in 2025. So as part of that search, they're holding several listening sessions for community members to meet with board members and provide input. One of those listening sessions is happening today at the high school at noon, starting in room 505. So you are invited and encouraged to attend. It will help ensure that the search process reflects the needs, priorities, and shared values of the MMUU SD community, and it informs the board's work in developing a next superintendent criteria. It's very formal sounding. For the selection of our next superintendent. Again, that begins at noon in room 505. It's just to the left before exiting, after you exit these main doors, I believe. Or as you come in, yeah. Maybe straight across the hallway from the entrance. Yes, so you exit these doors, go straight, you'll find room 505. I believe we're preparing to adjourn. I'm preparing anyway. Okay, yes. Oh, there are petitions on the way out. So this table is a great little hub of next steps. And again, we really do want your feedback. Give it to us directly or use this QR code here. Okay? We're adjourned. Thank you so much.